Another day, another story. You might associate the name Godiva with a brand of Belgian chocolates, but it was first popularized as part of a 900-year-old English legend. The original Lady Godiva was an 11th century noblewoman married to Leofric, the powerful Earl of Mercia and Lord of Coventry. As the story goes, Godiva was troubled by the crippling taxes Leofric had levied on the citizens of Coventry. Welcome to Tarbo Eminent Channel. After she repeatedly asked him to lessen the burden, Leofric quipped that he would lower taxes only if she rode naked on horseback through the center of town. Determined to help the public, Godiva stripped off her clothes, climbed on her horse and galloped through the market square with only her long flowing hair to cover herself. Before leaving, she ordered the people of Coventry to remain inside their homes and not peek, but one man, named Tom, couldn't resist opening his window to get an eyeful. Upon doing so, this Peeping Tom was struck blind. Lady Godiva was an Anglo-Saxon noblewoman who lived in the 11th century. The most famous legend associated with her is that she rode naked through the streets of Coventry, England, in order to persuade her husband, the Earl of Mercia, to reduce the heavy taxes he had imposed on the townspeople. According to the legend, Lady Godiva appealed to her husband, Leofric, to lift the oppressive taxes he had imposed on the people of Coventry. He agreed to do so on the condition that she ride through the town naked. Lady Godiva, known for her piety, agreed to the challenge and, accompanied by only her long hair to cover her body, rode through the streets. The townspeople were said to have been ordered to stay indoors and avert their eyes during her ride, but one man named Tom, later known as Peeping Tom, reportedly couldn't resist and peeked at her. In some versions of the story, he is struck blind or dead for his disobedience. It's important to note that the historical accuracy of the Lady Godiva story is debated, and it is often considered more of a legend than a factual account of events. Regardless, the tale has become a popular part of English folklore and has been retold and adapted in various forms over the centuries. The story of Lady Godiva has been retold in various ways over the centuries, and additional details have been added to the legend. One variation involves the issuance of a proclamation by Lady Godiva before her famous ride. According to some versions, she ordered the townspeople to remain indoors and close their windows and doors during her ride, and she was accompanied by a town crier who announced her instructions. Despite this proclamation, the curious Peeping Tom, unable to resist the temptation, peeked out and witnessed Lady Godiva's ride. In some versions of the legend, he is struck blind or dead as a consequence of his disobedience. The addition of Peeping Tom as a character has become a notable element of the story and is often used to emphasize the moral lesson of respecting privacy and refraining from voyeurism. It's important to recognize that the Lady Godiva legend has evolved and been embellished over time, with different retellings incorporating various details. While the core of the story revolves around her ride to alleviate the tax burden on the people of Coventry, the specific elements and characters may vary in different versions of the tale. After finishing her naked ride, Godiva confronted her husband and demanded that he hold up his end of the bargain. True to his word, Leofric reduced the people's debts. While most historians consider her nude horseback ride a myth, Lady Godiva, or Godgifu as some sources call her, was indeed a real person from the 11th century. The historical Godiva was known for her generosity to the church, and along with Leofric, she helped found a Benedictine monastery in Coventry. Contemporary accounts of her life note that Godgifu was one of only a few female landowners in England in the 1000s, but they make no mention of a clothes-free horseback ride. That story appears to have first cropped up some 100 years after her death in a book by the English monk Roger of Wendover, who was known for stretching the truth in his writings. The legend of Peeping Tom, meanwhile, didn't become a part of the tale until the 16th century. The Godiva myth was later popularized in songs and in verse by the likes of Alfred, Lord Tennyson, who wrote a famous poem called Godiva in 1840. While the basic elements of Lady Godiva's ride to protest her husband's oppressive taxes remain consistent in most versions of the legend, additional details and embellishments have been woven into the story over time. One version of the tale suggests that Lady Godiva, in her attempt to secure relief for the people of Coventry, approached her husband Leofric several times to plead for a reduction in taxes. Each time he refused, she persisted in her quest for justice. It was only after her repeated requests were denied that she decided to take the drastic step of riding naked through the town. In some variations, Lady Godiva is depicted as a deeply religious and charitable woman, known for her acts of kindness and generosity. Her reputation for benevolence further emphasizes her motivation to help the suffering townspeople. Additionally, some renditions of the story highlight the positive outcome of Lady Godiva's bold act. According to these versions, her husband, Earl Leofric, was moved by her commitment and the courage it took to ride through the streets unclothed. Touched by her sacrifice, he reportedly reconsidered his decision and agreed to lower the taxes on the people of Coventry. These additional elements contribute to the richness and complexity of the Lady Godiva legend, portraying her as a compassionate and determined woman who took extraordinary measures to advocate for the well-being of her community. Keep in mind that the historical accuracy of these details is uncertain, as the story has evolved over the centuries through oral tradition and various retellings. In certain renditions, Lady Godiva's motivation for the ride is presented as not only a protest against the heavy taxes imposed by her husband but also as a demonstration of her compassion for the suffering townspeople. According to these versions, she believed that her symbolic act would not only sway her husband's heart but also awaken empathy among the citizens, fostering a sense of solidarity against oppression. In some stories, Lady Godiva's ride is portrayed as a strategic move to shame her husband for his callousness. The legend suggests that she knew the power of public opinion and hoped that the townspeople, witnessing her daring act, would rally against the oppressive taxes and demand change. Moreover, certain adaptations of the tale emphasize the aftermath of Lady Godiva's ride. In these versions, her husband, Earl Leofric, is not only moved by her sacrifice but is also portrayed as a wise ruler who recognizes the error of his ways. Impressed by her commitment and the public response, he not only lifts the taxes but also enacts reforms to improve the overall welfare of Coventry. These variations showcase the flexibility of the Lady Godiva legend, with storytellers adding nuances to emphasize themes such as justice, compassion, and the power of collective action. It's important to remember that the story has been passed down through generations, and different cultures and storytellers have contributed to shaping its diverse interpretations. Thanks for watching. Request you to subscribe the channel.